We're here with our first European wrestling special as we talk about Westside Extreme Wrestling, or wXw Germany, one of the top European independent promotions. They spearheaded the careers of international superstars like Claudio Cesaro, Malachi Black, formerly Tommy End, Gunther, formerly Walter, and many more incredible performers. To do that today, I'm joined by the head official of wXw and COO, Tasslio Jung. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for asking. Thank you for having me, Andy.
Excellent. Of course, we are Tea and Tights, the Great British Wrestling podcast for Great British Wrestling, as featured on bodyslam.net and the Johners Podcasting Network. We do promote ourselves to British wrestling, but we do try to get as much European wrestling news as we can throughout our usual weekly roundup, because it's always, with the amount of amazing British talent that go over to Germany, it's hard to ignore it. So let's talk about some of that, like Cara Noir, Chris Ridgway, Doug Williams, Zack Sabre Jr., all guys that have performed their trade over in wXw Germany, and they're not the only international superstars. Was it down to the partnerships that you guys first you formed a lot of partnerships with promotions outside of Germany? Is that how those relationships started to form?
Well, I would like to credit most of this to my business partner, Felix. He's been instrumental in bringing in both English as well as American talent to Germany for the first time. So, for example, even when another promotion in Germany back in 2003, GSW, used to run their International Impact show, Felix was helping in bringing in the Bryan Danielson, the Chris Hero, the AJ Styles to this show. And he's also helped wXw to bring in, at this time, Jody Fleisch, Johnny Storm, Hayden Benson. He's always had an eye on the British scene. So I think for a certain time, especially when Ryanair flights to Düsseldorf Weizen were as cheap as they were, we were like half a British promotion. But at this time, our flights were super cheap. The British market wasn't very strong. So at certain house shows, of course, we would have Dark and Martin Stone here. We would have Shah Samuels and Terry Frazier here. We would have so many British people just on singular events. And over time, we shifted a bit more into this continental wrestling promotion that we are nowadays. But I think for the longest time, the draw to wXw has been the guest wrestlers that you could see once, twice, maybe 3 times a year. So we tried to work with everyone. We ran shows with PWG in 2006 and 2007. We ran a show with Noah in 2008. We ran shows with Chikara in 2005 and 2008. We ran shows with Combat Zone, with Big Japan. So whoever we could run shows with at that time, we would, because we figured out this would always bring in a couple of extra fans that were interested in their products and who might stick with wXw. And especially at a time where the German wrestling scene was not as developed as it is nowadays, those matches against better wrestlers were super beneficial to all our talent. And I want to say this is how all the corporations in the early wXw years came along.
I was actually quite surprised to know that Cesaro, I wasn't aware of this, that he actually started out in wXw, and due to those partnerships has managed to go on to become one of the biggest superstars in the world right now.
Yeah, like I remember like the first wXw show, like back then I wasn't even involved with any of the business end, right? It was just somebody running a show at Christmas Eve, and none of the existing German promotions were willing to lend their banner or brand to a show like this because nobody had time at Christmas Eve. So the promoter just went like, oh, fuck it, then I'll call it wXw. And whoever wants to wrestle that night can wrestle. I think we were able to find about 8 wrestlers. And one of the guys said, hey, I have a student in Switzerland, I'll bring him with me. And then he brought Claudio Cesaro along. So he crashed on my couch the night before, wrestled the very first match for wXw. And as I was absolutely sick at the time, from the second match on, Claudio also refereed and ring announced at this first show. But yeah, that's how it started.
That's quite sorry. And you actually, because the name Westside Extreme Wrestling actually came from the fact that you actually started off, well, wXw started off as an extreme promotion with a hardcore ranks, and it's been a model that's been replicated across Europe and in America with promotions like Progress and even Game Changer Wrestling right now, that they started quite extreme and then have branched out to a more mainstream audience.
Yeah, like I think when wXw started, the promoter back then, he was of course a big ECW fan, as I'm sure everyone in the late 90s was. And he was willing to do some hardcore wrestling, so the extreme stuff was what stood out from wXw to other promotions. But if we are fair, everything at this time in Germany is on a very, very basic and low level. So you can either have a rather poor show or a rather poor show with a bit of light tubes and barbed wire. But I don't think fans preferred it either way. And over time, we went in the direction of IWA Mid-South in having both the hardcore stuff as well as a bit of the better wrestling. So by bringing in Chris Hero and Mike Quackenbush, and by those people actually training decent wrestlers like Cesaro, like Aris, like others over here, then we were able to add this wrestling portion of the show as well. And over the years, it became more difficult to run any deathmatch stuff in Germany because, well, authorities in Germany don't take too kindly to that. So we separated it from the wXw product over time. Then we had a separate brand in 18 Plus Underground, where we pretty much ran shows where everybody knew where they were, but wouldn't publicly announce it, but just sell it via a mailing list, then tell people the day before, hey, it's this venue. Then people could come by and watch the deathmatch show. So this is what we did, I want to say 2009, 10, 11, 12. And at one point, we just decided, well, if we want to take wXw to another level and be a nationwide company in Germany and have decent relationships with authorities, with sponsors, with venues, then we need to cut deathmatch wrestling out. And it was at the very same time that lesser wrestlers in Germany were interested in doing deathmatch wrestling. And you would have those conversations that nobody wants when you get a call from America or from Japan. They're like, hey, we have one of our deathmatch wrestlers just tested positive for this and that. You might want to call a couple of your wrestlers. And especially on a side business, as wrestling was for us back then, I feel if you had one or two of those conversations, you pretty much go away from deathmatch wrestling as a promoter, because you really don't want to talk to people about that. Then call your friends and tell them, hey, you need blood test now because you might have gotten infected. So yeah, both were a big reason. You didn't have the wrestlers anymore. You didn't want the responsibility for that anymore. And it was bad for a growing business.
Yeah. And you then sort of like lent more towards European history past with actually going back to what we are, catch wrestling. And that's kind of like been the metaphor for a lot of your performers since then, the true strong style catch European wrestling.
Oh, I think we're mixing two different things now. Of course, we have the traditional stuff, right? Of course, Zack Sabre went in this direction, and we brought in Johnny Kidd and Johnny Saint, and we did a couple of things in this direction. But you also would have the strong style influence that especially Walter brought with him from Japan. Then you would have wrestlers going in this direction. But I feel that with the way our product is, the way our locker room is, we are very attractive towards wrestlers who know their craft and who want to back whatever they're doing entertainment-wise up with the sport in the ring. I think we've always been a rather physical product in what we're doing. And if somebody doesn't know his actual craft, it can't be hidden for too long with wXw, I think.
That's very, very true. So many great wrestlers you mentioned. And then I believe it's 2015, you've finally launched the first wXw Academy. Is that right?
Yeah, we always had like smaller trainings programs before, but it's pretty much rent a barn or rent a factory anywhere, put a ring there, and then whoever is the best of the group trains anybody else, right? Like it is at most places. And with 2015, we actually rented a building that was designated to be a pro wrestling school and put a ring in it, put mats in it, put gym equipment in it, and started hiring somebody full-time who would do nothing but train people. I think that was a big step, because rather than, hey, a couple of people meet once a week in the gymnasium, now you have an actual wrestling school. That, of course, was a game changer for us.
And it wasn't sort of like long after that you launched the wXwNOW service. I think it was a year later.
Yes.
Has that helped to spread the, I suppose, wXw Germany further into a worldwide stratosphere?
I don't know, to be honest. Because yes, wXw now, well, still is very important, but it's also a paywall, right?
Mm.
So of course it's important to have that kind of monetization for your content to be able to actually create the content. But on the other hand, I think having the content more accessible by just putting that out on YouTube helps growing the audience. So I don't think wXw Now was necessarily great for growing our audience, but for monetizing the audience that we currently have and to be able to continue delivering our product with a certain standard. So I think it's rather capitalization on the audience that you have than growing the audience if you have a subscription service. But then, for example, that at one time that we were able to put our stuff on WWE Network, then you could assume that most wrestling fans either have access to the WWE Network in some form, or despise it so much that they don't care about us anymore.
To be honest, I'll be, yeah, it was kind of, you joined WWE Network just around the time, obviously, COVID hit. So that was nice. And was that quite advantageous to have WWE approach you at that time, knowing what was kind of coming ahead?
Well, WWE approached us in, I don't know if I can say this, but we signed a contract far before COVID happened. I think the first shows went on the network in summer of 2019, and as negotiations with any bigger company are, they take a while. So we talked for a while before that. It was important to have that, especially when COVID happened, but we didn't start those negotiations or continue them in a certain way because COVID happened. But yeah, having that in the back, of course, is very beneficial and helped us navigating the whole pandemic a bit better than we would have been able to do so else.
I must admit, it did encourage me to sign up for wXw Now, because I started watching, it was the Catch Grand Prix at the time. I think you were running one wrestling match at the time. And I was just like, it was 3 weeks behind. I'm like, I don't want to be 3 weeks behind anymore. So I went and picked up the wXw Now subscription so I could keep up to date fully. And it was kind of just ahead of that 22nd anniversary show, when you were finally, 21st, you were finally able to be back in front of fans, and you would just announce Walter versus Cara Noir. I was like, yeah, I'm signing up now.
Great.
So yeah, let's talk about, obviously, COVID did happen. It was horrible. You had the a lot of the no fan shows, and then finally 21st anniversary, you're able to run a show in front of fans once again. You had that big marquee match. What was that kind of like? How was it getting prepared to go back to running shows with fans?
It was interesting because during the pandemic, we pretty much switched our whole roster. We refocused to being a continental European promotion. Of course, it happened by force, because for some of the tapings we couldn't get our British talent in anymore. And at one point we sat down and we realized, wow, like half the people we want on those first shows in front of an audience have never wrestled a WXW show in front of actual fans. So that was the different. When we at this time weren't able to get to Wienhalle, so we ran 20th anniversary like half a day, a year too late, in August 2021. Yeah, with August 2021 we ran 20th anniversary, and of course having this very first show in front of fans was great. 2 months later, having the first 4-day show, 4-day tour in front of fans was great. Having 21st anniversary with Walter vs. Cara being back at Turbine was great. I think that there were a lot of moments that felt like, hey, we've all really been working for that. We've really fought to make this happen. And even though we still had restrictions, a couple of those shows were close to happening or not happening because of laws changing every other day pretty much. It was very rewarding to get them done, no matter how stressful that ended up being.
Yeah, because we first saw the first sort of like true international talents come back around 16 Carat Gold, which was an absolutely phenomenal show. Guys like Ninja Mac came in. I'm going blank a bit. Lufisto was there, was the first ever female to compete in. So it was quite a historic moment to have that after a year of no 16 karat gold, and that being the marquee weekend, I guess, for you guys, pretty much every year prior.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. Of course, it halfway felt like 16 karat because you had a capacity of 750 and you couldn't get more people in there, and we tried to have a couple of more people being able to follow it at home by doing the near live stream that we hadn't done before. But yeah, it felt like a festival weekend. Of course, there was still a lot of rules going on, and we had to have 3G checks for everyone, we had tests for everyone. So it was still difficult to do it, but it was very rewarding to get to run an actual festival. And same as the tapings we did before, for all of us, it felt like a couple of days of almost being back to normal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, since you get quite haven't reached that full normality yet, but it keeps getting better and better, and we can kind of hope that improves, because we're seeing more guys come over to wXw. Recently had Leovon St. Giovanni over there. Most recently, Alex Kane's just arrived, hasn't he, for you guys? And we're starting to see some big stars, European stars as well. But I did love the Continental because this new almost found partnership with HCW and the Passion Pro guys, and seeing these amazing talents come through from all across Europe and especially Hungary, with guys like Peter Tehani and the Gulias brothers coming through at the moment. Was it quite like were you aware of everything Hungary was going on in Hungary and all the stars that were coming up, or was that like a blessing of, wow, we're finding all this great talent all of a sudden?
No, like of course, Hungary and France are the two countries that we need to name first, right?
Yeah.
And France, yeah, I was very aware of that scene, and I knew that, for example, Tristan has been trying to work with wXw for many years. And when we got him in for the tapings, him and Sense immediately connected. And from the first show that we ran with APC in Paris, we knew that, for example, Aigle Blanc would be a great fit for our roster as well. So we knew what was going on there. With the Hungarians, we really didn't know that whatever they had, the training school was as good as it was. Pretty much Dover and Icarus have been working incredibly hard to be a part of the European wrestling scene, and they traveled everywhere and they made every offer they could to every promoter. And branching out of such a remote country in terms of pro wrestling is beyond hard. So when I think we called it before the first lockdown tapings that we did, and they were like complete lockdown. Like we could only move between a hotel, a restaurant, and the venue. We weren't even allowed to go inside a gas station. We needed to have a runner on the outside to go to a pharmacy if any of us needed medication. It was like an actual lockdown situation where everyone needed to prove they tested negative at home, got in a car, and drove somehow to Germany. And we approached the Hungarians about this probably 10 days in advance, and I emailed Icarus and Dover. I was like, hey, do you want to do that? Are you able to drive to Germany for 5 days, be on complete lockdown? Also, you would need to make the whole trip in one drive. We couldn't even stop for food in Austria. You just need to drive through. Do you actually want to do this? And do you have people who can come with you? And most rational people, I would say, would need like a day or two to think over that. And they shot back like, yep, we 100% want to do this. Here's the crew we want to do this with. And they came by, and the conditions of those tapings were absolutely terrible. It was freezing cold in the venue. There was a blizzard going on. People couldn't drive home on the day they were supposed to drive home. Of course, with having like 10, 12 matches in 5 days after 6 months of nothing, half the guys got hurt on this. And the Hungarians were like absolute last one standing. They were able to do extra matches at the end and fill in whenever they needed to. And they made this crazy good impression. And since then, we've been working so much with the Passion guys.
Yeah, I've really been impressed with young Peter Tahani, who's just really become very popular with the German crowds as well. He gets some of the biggest reactions every time he sort of like walks through that curtain these days. And somebody I would like to see in the UK. So UK promoters, I keep mentioning his name, but I'd love to see him. let's go back to the wXw Academy. And if you could pick now, Progress, they do the natural progression series every year. If you could pick 4 people from Europe right now, as 4 young stars from the Academy and the Greater Europe, who would you send over for that natural progression series, similar to what you did for the Super 16?
So just to be clear on the terms, like how much experience can those guys have? How young do they have to be? What's the rules of that?
5 years of experience max, I think.
Oh, that's easy, because a lot of the guys that we consider being really good don't have that experience. Like, I don't think Peter Tiani has been wrestling for 5 years, to be honest, right?
No.
Yeah, so there's a lot of guys with little experience that they could be great for that. Of course, Peter would be wonderful for that, even though the Hungarians have like 5-6 other guys there that would easily fit that as well. I think out of our own school, Levaniel would be a great fit, especially because he's very different from what a modern indie wrestler tends to be. I think from our academy, Elijah Bloom is somebody to watch. Like, he's had probably 15 matches by now, and in some of those matches, he wrestled somebody who has like 10 times the experience, and you think he is the veteran carrying the match. So yeah, he'd be a great fit for that. We think, who else do I like for that? It's always hard to pick the last person, because then you have to exclude everyone else, right? It's not yes to one, but it's a no to everyone else. Somebody's gonna get really, really upset with me about it. Right? It's like that. Last person. So we have, if we go with Peter, if we go with Elijah, if we go with Levaniel. It needs to be male wrestlers, right?
You can send a female if you'd like.
Yeah, well, that makes things even more difficult.
All right, we'll stick to male. Stick to male.
Yeah, let's go with Nick Schreier. I think he's somebody to watch. He's a young guy from Dresden, out of the Franz Engel, Lawrence Roman, Axel Tischer training seminars. He's been doing some of our academy shows. He's been staffing at some of the Eastern German shows. He's done the Fight Forever match with Alex Kane, where some of you have seen him. He did a Wheel of Wrestling match or 2. I think he might be somebody to watch who could break out in a year or 2. I think that's a good call.
Yes, I like that list. Now, you recently sent 4 guys over for the Super Strong Style 16. Maggot was the man who went on to qualify. I actually got his signed picture up there from the Super Strong Style 16 weekend. Have you been surprised at how popular he's become with the UK crowd? Because he's really become very popular with the UK crowds.
No, not a surprise. Like, when him and Ahura approached us about splitting the Bastards, their previous tag teams, all of us were against it, because we felt, guys, you could be, or you pretty much are, our top tag team act right now. And of course, you've won the title once, but you've never had like the actual title run in front of an audience where you defended the big run. So we didn't think the story has been told for you guys. And for neither person, we had a vision of what we're going to do with them if they won tag team. And they both said, no, we 100% want to do this, we trust this. So we're like, okay, let's do it. But pretty much you made your bed, now you gotta line it, right? And when it was probably the 3rd or 4th day of the second pandemic tapings, and Maggot did his entrance for the first time, and we're just seeing how all the guys reacted at that moment. We're like, okay, this is guaranteed startup. If he doesn't get hurt, if he can do that in front of an audience, fans will crazily get behind this within a very short time. And this is what happens. Like the act that he has was just feeling fresh and right. And once we saw that in front of a group of tired wrestlers mimicking an audience, we knew it was going to work in front of an actual audience.
Yeah, that entrance music, I don't know who does the entrance music, if you want to shout them out, because that's just really hypnotic, if you like. You can't help but clap along and just watch him then with the way he struts down the ring is just hypnotic, as you say. And Because originally you had him feuding with Axel Tisca, who was at the time like the big face, but you found that the crowd was still getting behind Maggot just because of the way he was performing his character, which was just amazing to see. Now, what's coming up is the World Tag Team Festival as your second big festival since you've returned. I'm going to be there. I'm really looking forward to this. How's the preparations been going for it?
Very good. I was even able to go on vacation until last week, and when I got back, it pretty much hit me how much stuff I hadn't taken care of yet. But yeah, it's absolutely fine. We still feel we have a very solid chance to run the festival without any COVID restrictions, which was always the big thing. I think it's happening in a very difficult situation for the whole live event industry. So I think the attendance figure is something different than what people are used to from wXw, and we can dive into that if you want to. But everything else is going really well. I think we have an interesting lineup for the Tag Festival. We have a very good lineup for Femme Fatale, which is a great mix of new and established talent, of national and international talent. It's gonna be fun. And we have the wildcard event, which I'm crazy looking forward to, because we pretty much put out this ad saying, hey, if you want to wrestle in Germany for wXw, all you need to do is get yourself here and send in something that convinces us, right? Of course, we got a couple of absolutely terrible applications that were beyond weird that we couldn't take. But we also got some crazy good ones, and we could have invited 10 more great wrestlers. So knowing that all of those people are very capable and that our audience likely doesn't know them yet, and that they will have this one window of, I don't know, 10 minutes to make an impression, that should make for a crazy cool show on Monday afternoon.
Yeah, and there's plenty of returning stars, as you say. Mel's going to be there for the Femme Fatales. You've got Metahan returning to action, and you've got international superstars coming in from across the world, including Speedball Mike Bailey versus Bobby Guns for the third time. Now, Bobby Guns has 2 victories over him previously. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, Chris Brooks is going to be there from the UK alongside his CDK tag team partner, the Calamari Drunken Kings. So a lot of international talent coming in for this one. Is that mainly because the restrictions are getting easier and easier?
Yeah, it's that, but it's also, I think, part of our festival allure, right? It's the one or the 2 times a year we will bring in a lot of people. I think it's what's expected of our festivals, and it makes sense. We always try to have a mix of people who already have a certain connection to our crowd. For example, Chris Brooks hasn't been here in ages. Amal hasn't been here in a long time. You have Mike Bailey, who has been coming here for so many years before he was able to resume working in the United States. You would have Shige and Abe, who have been here either a lot or at 16 Carat, who already have this connection. And then you have completely new people who don't have that connection yet. And I think the mix of that makes it really interesting. But yeah, the festivals, I don't think we could run one without bringing in import talent. It's part of the festival. It's also one of our cases why we would not run, I don't know, a 16 Carat 2021, either without, I don't want to say international talent, because international is even Hungary and Austria, right? But import talent, but also one without fans. I think either doesn't work. The festival needs both the depth of talent as well as the audience ability to attend the festival. Both are important to have.
And you mentioned the wildcard show. I noticed we've got a few British wrestling stars coming over for that one as well, including Kev Lloyd and Man Like Doris, 2 of my favorites, so I'm excited to see them over there as well. Now, the one festival you haven't brought back yet is the Catch Grand Prix. Are there plans for this one in 2023?
No, not really. But not having this plan since don't mean we're not going to do it. We haven't talked about what we're going to do as a fall festival. We like the Catch Grand Prix as this daily show that we did during the pandemic. We think it was a good fit for that certain time because there was very little entertainment going on. I don't think the same format would be received the same way today, especially with audiences already having seen the show and then just publishing matches on a daily basis. I don't think that would work. we tried to run it as a festival in 2021, and we had very low reactions from the audience. I think the round system turns a lot of people off. Personally, I like it a whole lot, but I can also see why in the modern wrestling environment, where people used to a very high octane, full force, high speed wrestling, that interrupting every match every 3 minutes is a deal breaker for some fans. Then we tried to run this Blitz tournament, which we did as a Catch Hungary spin-off last year. It was like an old catch concept, and I think it was one of the worst shows we ran in quite some time. Again, no blame at anyone, but the mix of fans were originally wanting a full festival, then the festival was canceled because the venue wasn't available anymore because of COVID restriction. Then the show gets condensed into one show, but it's still like a 4.5 hour show. That's far too long for anyone to actually enjoy. I think that led to a rather messy event that people didn't get what they want out of. So I don't know if this brand is too tarnished to do again. So I'm not ruling it out, but also it's not like the likeliest concept right now.
Yeah, I think I get where you come from. I was a big fan when the NXT UK brought in the Heritage Cup. We quite liked the round system, but we can understand that when it comes to a broader international market, it can be difficult to translate that old school round system. Now, at the last 16 Carat Gold, it was the 1 hour. You didn't do live pay-per-view, but more like an hour and a half, and then it went up.
Yeah.
How did that go, and is that something you're going to be implementing for future, or is this something that was too difficult to run? Let us know.
No, it wasn't necessarily too difficult to run. Like of course it helped that this was Katja's last like real big weekend as our head of video, and she bought all the equipment for that. She tested the system. She schooled all her people to work with exactly that. So when we did it, we were ready to do it, and we were confident that it would work, and it worked. There were a couple of smaller hiccups where we had like near heart attack situations, but nothing too serious. So it worked. It also led to a spike in numbers in wXw NOW subscriptions, but not to the point where I would have expected it to be. So still a good thing to do, because we got a couple of hundred people who wouldn't have been able to attend 16 Carat, either due to travel restrictions, due to uncertainty, due to being out with COVID at the very same time. They were able to enjoy 16 Carat at home, and I'm very happy about that. We have a new head of video. It's Mark Shuttle, who moved over here from the UK. He's been doing a wonderful job. I don't think his team is at the exact same point right now. So I think if I ask him, hey, I really want to do this next week, can you make it happen? Yeah, he likely could. But if I asked him, hey, do you want to make this happen? He'd probably say, nah, let's wait a few months and first improve a couple of our workflows and be better at this. Also, I'm not entirely sure whether I really want to do it, because I feel our main source, both of income and our main priority, are live events for the live audience. And I know that there's a ton of people who watch wrestling from home and who have this, who say a lot that they would expect wXw to go in direction of live streams and all that because they want to watch the shows this way. But to me, the crowd participation inside the venue is more important than what's perceived at home. And as long as also our income is generated more from the live event side than from the video side, I think this priority makes sense. Because if I want to watch wrestling that's produced for me to be consumed at home, there's a crazy amount of wrestling. Like even between only WWE and AEW as the top players, they put out what, 10 hours of content every week. And then you have so many other promotions who also follow the same model, right? You have all the independent promotions doing live pay-per-views or live YouTube streams. You have a lot of promotions doing TV shows. You of course have streams from New Japan, from DDT, from so many others, and they all cater to enjoy wrestling at home. I feel it always makes sense to be different. I know you have to have video production. You have to continuous stream of shows and storylines. It's all important to have. But I think being the independent promotion who focuses at live first, or live in the venue first, and the TV product second. That makes sense to set us apart from other promotions. I know that there's very different opinions about this, and even in our team there's different opinions about this, which is beneficial and healthy. But if you talk to me, I'm pretty much the, hey, let's focus on the live side. Everything else should still happen. It's still very important. But our main priority should always, hey, this person's in the venue right now. He's able to interact with the wrestlers. Let's give him the very best evening we can. And by creating a certain atmosphere in the venue from that, we will also have a good TV product if we film it the right way and commentate it the right way, light it the right way, edit it the right way. But we have a product where the people in the venue still feel, I'm first. I'm the most important fan right here, rather than, no, I'm just a bystander for a TV tape.
Mm. Yeah, no, it does work because you got promotions here in the UK who still progress. It's the same model they work through to. I think RevPro UK are apparently going to start trying to do pay-per-view, but we'll see how that goes when it comes along. Let me have a look through my questions. And we got the... Okay, now let's talk about some of the, because wXw is, we've talked about international stars and everyone, but let's talk about the guys that have come through wXw and have gone on to become international superstars. Guys like Walter, guys like Ilya Dragunov now, Axel Dreiter, Axel Tiska, and so many others. Who would be your first pick for the wXw Germany Hall of Fame?
Well, we have a Hall of Fame, but there's people in there.
Oh, sorry, I missed this.
If I were to start out completely new, yeah, but bar none, it's Walter. I think the most important thing is to look at body of work, and he's worked for our company for 14 years, I think, and put over likely many top matches than anybody else, but also for what influence did he have on the product, which influence did he have on the locker room. And he was the absolute locker room leader for a couple of years. He helped shape a new generation. He was responsible for bringing in people like Axel Dieter, like Mac, like many others. And he also was responsible for developing our new talent by running the WWE Wrestling Academy. So yeah, Walter is an absolute clear number one. If I were to start a new Hall of Fame, the old one exists. It got started in, I don't know, 2004 so that there's a lot of weird choices in there that necessarily wouldn't hold up if you have a 2022 Hall of Fame, but it all feels like choices that were right choices at the very time that they happened. So the Hall of Fame also tells a story on how wXw as a company and their decision-making process develops.
Okay, let's switch the question up a bit more to now. In America, they always talk about the Mount Rushmore. Who would be, including Walter, so 3 more picks to go alongside him that you would put out of European wrestling, not just wXw? Who would be the names that you think deserve to be up there?
Absolutely, Walter. Carsten Beck belongs on there for being with wXw from the shittiest rookie you've ever seen until a world champion with a very sad ending. I think Bad Bones John Klinger needs to be on there, even though he's not with the company anymore, and I don't see it happening again. I think for all the time that he was with the company, it makes a lot of sense to include him in that. And again, we're down to the 4th pick. I'm torn between a couple of guys on that. Let me go with Absolute Andy.
Absolute Andy. Yes. Nice pick. Is there anything else that you were looking to promote today?
Well, if you are still looking into coming over for World Tag Festival, it's wonderful the idea, and you should do that. If it's a bit too late to purchase that now, I also get that. We have 16 Carat in March, and it'll be open to traveling fans. Tickets are on sale and have been on sale for half a year now, and we're looking at a very high amount of tickets sold for that one. It'll be a great wrestling festival, which hopefully happens without COVID restrictions. If you want to start watching wXw from home, World Tag Festival is a great opportunity to do so. for example, if you subscribe to wXwNOW on October 1st, you would get 7 shows in the first month for $9.99, which is the usual price for any wrestling subscription service. So you probably pay around €1.50 per wrestling event, which I think is kind of a steal. So that's a good way. Also with wXwNOW, you have access to our full archive. We have about 1,700 hours of content on there. It is pretty much everything we ever did from when people were able to start holding cameras that weren't too shaky.
Excellent. And of course, with the wXw now, you've also got so many more European promotions on there. Body Slam Wrestling, who I started watching through you guys. Rising Sun in Italy, again, started watching through you guys. I really like the wXw now system. Okay, the hard question now. WWE, of course, launching possibly NXT Europe 2023. Now you've got the working relationship. You're hoping that this is going to be maintained and where it won't affect you too much. Hard question.
It's a hard question. I'll answer it as well as I can. I think from the last, I want to say 4 years since the first rumors of NXT UK or of the tournament they did, I think it's been established that nobody can really predict what WWE does. And WWE really doesn't pay too much attention to any other promotions, be it partners or no partners. So predicting what this company's decision-making process is going to be in 2023 is almost impossible given how much the landscapes in WWE tends to change on very short notice. Like, for example, who would have thought that Vince McMahon was gone like 3 months ago, right? That was impossible to predict. And what has happened since then, it has been an incredibly interesting development, but one that we cannot impact in any form or way. I think impact was maybe the wrong word to choose for that, but still. So impacting the progress of WWE is pretty much impossible to us, right? That's not done on that. So I think our way is always to look at if they do something, we have to decide on how we react and how we can keep our company alive and afloat and how to adjust what we're doing. I think we're pretty good at that, to change our strategy whenever we need to. And if there or when there will be an NXT Europe, we need to adjust accordingly. But yeah, it's impossible to predict what WWE will do. And it's not like anyone has to give us a call and say, hey guys, these are our plans for next year. Like pretty much our knowledge is what we hear between the lines and between communication, but what is online. I think that's your knowledge as well.
Excellent. Oh, Tassilo, I won't keep you for too much longer. So thank you so much for coming on today. It's been enjoyed to talk about wXw Germany. I don't get to talk about it too much. So like a little clips here with my podcast co-host on the weekly. So it's nice to get a nice long one. I'm looking forward to getting a few of the stars on just beforehand, before the World Tag Team Festival. And I'm just really excited for the future for you guys, and really excited to get over there.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope you'll have a great trip. It'll be a lot of fun.
Thank you very much. And remember, guys out there, just remember one thing. Don't feed the trolls.